Well, good afternoon, traders. And it was the day before the Jackson Hole Symposium, and all seems to be fairly well at the moment. I will take a step back and actually have a look at the event risk ahead of us, because I think that's really important before we touch on the Jackson Hole. If you have a look at our European markets, they're going to get a lot of focus over the next sort of 6 hours or so. If you look at the European opening calls at the moment, you can see the DAX being called down 32. You can see the FTSE being called down 25. In the FX markets, you can see euro dollar still below the 111 handle, pretty much unchanged on the day. But we expect that to get a bit more of a working out. One of the big concerns at the moment is the fact that we're looking, somewhat more Italian politics, but it's also German growth, which seems to be a concern, because next week we get the German GDP numbers. The consensus is there. We get about a 10 basis point contraction on the quarter, which would see back-to-back contractions, which of course is a technical recession. So we are going to see a very mild technical recession in Germany, according to consensus, if that proves to be on the money. Ahead of that, though, as we go into the European session tonight, we get the PMI series, not just the services, but the manufacturing PMI numbers. These are the flash estimates, so the first estimates for the market numbers. If you have a look at German numbers, the markets expect that to tick down to 43 on the index. So anything below 50 shows contraction, and that is, as long as market have been producing the indices and the compilation of the indices on both services and manufacturing, this would be the lowest read since inception. So that would be going deeper into contraction. That pace of decline in manufacturing in Germany would be accelerating. That is obviously not good, and it sort of leads us to believe that there is further downside and fragility in some of the European data points. The euro has held in very well despite some of the data of late being quite poor. So that's something we are watching. If it does come out to the upside, if it beats 43, one suspects that euro dollar could have a nice pop on that situation, because the world is obviously very short euros, and we'll have perhaps a little bit of a respite coming through in the DAX as well. But considering as we go into the 12th of September in the ECB meeting, where there's about a 45% chance that we're going to see the deposit rate being taken down to negative 60, we'll have to see how the reactions go, especially in the European banking sector as well. That's something we're watching very closely. You can see across G10 effects that we can see the fairly slim ranges playing through. Apart from the PMI data, we go into the US trading session. You've got jobless claims coming out. The market's expecting 216,000 there. You've got the market PMI numbers coming out of the US. I wouldn't expect them to be too much of a game changer. The market tends to look more at the ISM manufacturing numbers as opposed to the market read. And also the leading indicators. Now, it's a compilation of 10 different forward-looking indicators the market looks at. The market's expecting that to increase 0.3%. So anything below that might see a little bit of a dollar sell-off. Probably dollar yen would be the most sensitive to that number there. But it hasn't necessarily been much of a market driver of late. So we're not expecting that to transform. But again, this is very much a market now which is looking ahead at tomorrow, where during the Asian trading session we get Esther George starting the proceedings at the Jackson Hole Symposium, going into midnight tomorrow night, and for us here in Australia that's Eastern Standard Time, and we get Jerome Powell speaking, and he'll really be, obviously we don't know the speakers at the moment for Jackson Hole, we don't know the full suite of speakers. They'll be released tomorrow night, or tonight should we say, but certainly Jerome Powell seems to be the sort of the keynote speaker at this point in time. And what will he say? Of course, what we're looking for is an idea about, will he guide us to a stronger belief of 50 basis points? One suspects not. He seems pretty content with a 25 basis point cut, and probably will guide us to that again. But also the idea of what's really been buoying the markets lately, and see what's curbed the downside in a lot of the equity markets and risk assets, is the idea that central banks have been exploring the possibility of all the different monetary policy options they have at their disposal should we see an economic downturn. Plus, we've seen a lot of governments coming out and talking about potential fiscal stimulus as well, should we see it. So certainly that's something we're looking at tomorrow and the Jackson Hole Symposium. What will these different central bankers give us in terms of implications for a September rate move? And also, will they reinforce the idea that perhaps they do have the tools at their disposal to prop up economies and achieve their objectives should we see an economic downturn?